Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a sprawling, nonsensical mansion that might just be the most peculiar architectural anomaly ever conceived. Imagine, if you will, a house so utterly obsessed with its own expansion that it forgot basic. Things like, say, proper doorways or staircases that actually lead somewhere useful. You're picturing yourself wandering through dimly lit hallways, bumping into walls, perhaps even stumbling upon a door that opens directly onto a two-story drop. Sounds like a fun evening, right? Like a particularly ill-conceived escape room, but one where the main puzzle is simply existing without tripping. Honestly, you probably wouldn't survive the night in this place without at least a mild concussion, let alone a good night's rest. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're winding down tonight and what time it is for you. Maybe you're nestled under a cozy blanket in London, or perhaps it's the sleepy hours of dawn in Tokyo. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We're going to gently open the creaking, perpetually under-construction door to the Winchester Mystery House, a place where the spirits, if they exist, are perhaps just as confused as the living. This isn't your typical haunted house with jump scares and dramatic apparitions. Oh no, this is a place where the ghosts might actually be trying to find their way to the bathroom, only to get lost in a cupboard under the stairs. The story begins with Sarah Winchester, a woman whose life was profoundly shaped by immense wealth and an equally immense tragedy. You see, Sarah was the widow of William Wirt Winchester, the treasurer of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. And if that name rings a bell, it's probably because you've either seen it in a classic Western movie, or perhaps you're just a fan of historical firearms. The Winchester rifle, often dubbed the gun that won the West, had made the family incredibly rich. Think of it as the 19th century equivalent of inventing something like the iPhone, but for shooting things. So, when William passed away in 1881, Sarah inherited an astonishing fortune, estimated to be about $20 million at the time, which, for context, would be billions in today's money. Enough to buy a small country, or, as it turned out, an extremely large, baffling house. But with this vast inheritance came a heavy burden of grief. Sarah had already lost her infant daughter Annie years before, and now her husband was gone too. It's said that these profound losses left her in a state of deep mourning and, crucially for our story, led her to seek solace in spiritualism. Now, spiritualism was quite the rage in the late 19th century, a sort of Victorian-era self-help movement mixed with seances and a dash of theatricality. People genuinely believed they could communicate with the dead, often through mediums. It was like calling a supernatural customer service line, hoping to get through to your departed loved ones, except sometimes you just got a busy signal or a mischievous spirit pretending to be your aunt. It's at this point that our narrative takes a turn for the truly bizarre. Legend has it that Sarah consulted a medium in Boston who delivered a rather unsettling message. The medium claimed that Sarah's family fortune was cursed, tainted by the thousands of lives taken by Winchester rifles, and these restless spirits, the victims of the gun that won the West, were now haunting Sarah. To appease them, and to ensure her own survival, the medium advised Sarah to move west and build a house. But not just any house. This house was to be continuously constructed, never finished. As long as the building continued, the spirits would be appeased and Sarah would live. The moment construction stopped, she would die. Talk about a strict architectural deadline. It's like a never-ending home renovation project, but with your literal life on the line. Imagine trying to explain that to your contractor. Yes, we need to add another wing, even though it blocks the sunroom and leads directly into a wall. It's for my spiritual well-being, you see. So, in 1886, Sarah Winchester packed her bags, her immense wealth, and her rather unique architectural brief, and moved to San Jose, California. There she purchased an unfinished farmhouse, a modest beginning for what would become one of the most perplexing and purportedly haunted houses in America. The farmhouse itself was nothing special at first, just a typical rural dwelling. But Sarah, driven by her spiritual convictions and perhaps a touch of obsessive compulsion, began to transform it. And when I say transform, I mean she embarked on a building spree that lasted for 38 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until her death in 1922. The sounds of hammers and saws were constant, a lullaby of construction that surely drove the neighbors absolutely mad. It's like having that one neighbor who's always doing DIY projects, but amplified by 1,000, non-stop, for almost 4 decades. The historical accounts, while often embellished by time and legend, generally agree on the core facts. Sarah Winchester was a woman of immense means who built a massive, eccentric house. The question of why she built it in such a peculiar manner is where the historical debate truly heats up. Was it genuinely due to spiritual guidance, a desperate attempt to outrun the ghosts of the past? Or was it simply the whim of an eccentric millionaire with too much time, too much money, and perhaps a touch of architectural ADHD? Some historians argue that Sarah was merely a wealthy woman with an interest in design and a love for building, and the ghost stories were later fabrications, perhaps to drum up tourist interest. It's hard to imagine anyone actively trying to build a staircase that goes nowhere for aesthetic reasons. But hey, art is subjective. However, the sheer illogical nature of the house strongly leans into the spiritual interpretation. Why else would someone construct doors that open into brick walls, or windows that overlook other rooms, or staircases that end abruptly at the ceiling? It wasn't about functionality, it was about ceaseless activity, a never-ending motion to appease the unseen forces that Sarah believed were pursuing her. You can almost picture her, walking through the ever-changing maze of her home, perhaps humming to herself, oblivious to the fact that she's just added a 5th-story door that leads directly to a very painful demise. It's a kind of architectural absurdity that borders on performance art, but with much higher stakes. This house, you see, became a monument to Sarah's grief, her paranoia, and her relentless pursuit of peace. It was a tangible manifestation of her inner turmoil, a house that grew and mutated just as her fears and beliefs evolved. And as we continue our journey through this labyrinthine abode, we'll start to uncover the strange stories, the forgotten details, and perhaps even meet some of the more clumsy residents who never quite checked out. As you continue your silent stroll through the imaginary, dust-mote-filled corridors of the Winchester Mystery House, you can almost feel the presence of Sarah Winchester herself, constantly overseeing the chaotic symphony of construction. It wasn't just about building, it was about building peculiarly. Her obsession wasn't simply with adding rooms, but with adding disorienting rooms, as if the very architecture was designed to confuse any lurking spirits, or perhaps just to keep the mortal mailman on his toes. Imagine, if you will, the daily routine of Sarah. You might picture a woman in flowing Victorian attire, perhaps with a slight, almost imperceptible tremor in her hands, holding blueprints that only made sense to her or to a team of highly confused architects. But the truth is, Sarah rarely used formal blueprints. The house grew organically, almost like a living, breathing entity, with rooms added here, hallways extended there, and staircases twisting in directions that defied logic. It was like a game of architectural exquisite corpse, where each worker added their piece without seeing the full picture. Only Sarah held the master vision, a vision that, to an outsider, looked like a fever dream rendered in redwood and plaster. Her belief in the constant need for construction was not just a whim, it was, in her mind, a matter of life and death. The story goes that she received her instructions directly from the spirits during nightly seances. These weren't your typical spooky seances with flickering candles and disembodied voices moaning about unfinished business. No, these were her private consultations, often held in a specially designed seance room, which we'll wander into a bit later. She would consult the spirits on what to build next, which direction to extend a hallway, or perhaps which unfortunate window should lead directly into a wall. It's like getting interior design advice from the afterlife, and frankly, the results suggest the spirits might not have been the best at spatial planning. Yes, Sarah, the spirits agree. A door opening onto a 2-story drop is exactly what this house needs for better chai. This relentless building spree led to some truly bizarre architectural features. Think about it. A staircase that descends 7 steps and then rises 11. A door that opens directly onto a solid brick wall on the 2nd floor, or chimneys that stop abruptly before reaching the ceiling. It's enough to make a modern building inspector spontaneously combust. You'd probably find yourself walking down a hallway, humming a little tune, only to realize you've just walked past 5 doors that lead to absolutely nowhere. It's the architectural equivalent of a choose-your-own-adventure book, but every choice leads to a dead end, or worse, a laundry room. The house eventually grew to an astounding size. At its peak, it reportedly contained 160 rooms, including 40 bedrooms, 2 ballrooms, and 13 bathrooms. Think about the sheer number of bathrooms alone. It's like a commercial property designed for an entire small town, not a single wealthy widow. And let's not forget the 10,000 window panes and approximately 2,000 doors. Imagine cleaning all those windows. Sarah must have had the most dedicated and probably the most baffled cleaning crew in all of California. Or perhaps she had a secret legion of ghostly cleaners, perpetually polishing the same pane of glass, lost in an infinite loop. One of the less-known facts about Sarah Winchester is her profound reclusiveness during this period. Despite the constant flurry of activity and the hundreds of workers on her payroll, she was a deeply private person. She often slept in a different bedroom each night, reportedly to confuse any malevolent spirits who might be seeking her out. It's like a real-life game of hide-and-seek with the supernatural, played on a grand scale. You can almost picture her, shuffling through the labyrinthine hallways in her nightgown, lamp in hand, whispering, "You'll never find me, you pesky poltergeists! I'm in the room with the purple wallpaper and the door to nowhere tonight!" This reclusiveness also extended to her interactions with the workers. She would often communicate through written notes, leaving instructions in designated areas. Imagine trying to explain to a carpenter that you need him to build a door in the middle of a wall, not because it leads anywhere, but because the spirits demand it. It's safe to say employment at the Winchester Mystery House probably required a very strong sense of humor and an even stronger sense of bewilderment. Historians still debate the true extent of Sarah's belief in the spiritual world versus her potential eccentricities. Was it genuine conviction, or perhaps a coping mechanism for immense grief, manifested in an architectural fever dream? Some speculate that her constant building was a form of therapy, a way to keep her mind occupied and distracted from her profound losses. It's certainly a more elaborate coping mechanism than, say, knitting or binge-watching historical documentaries. Building a 160-room mansion seems like a rather extreme form of retail therapy, doesn't it? Regardless of the root cause, the result was undeniable. A house that defied architectural norms, a structure that was both beautiful and utterly perplexing. It was a tangible testament to one woman's unwavering belief in the unseen, or perhaps her delightful disregard for structural sanity. And as you prepare to delve deeper into its confusing depths, just remember, if you suddenly find yourself in a room you don't recognize, don't worry, it's probably just another one of Sarah's delightful little architectural jokes. Or perhaps one of the clumsy spirits has just led you astray. As you drift deeper into the peculiar annals of the Winchester Mystery House, you find yourself navigating what feels less like a home and more like an architectural fever dream. This isn't just a house, it's a living, breathing testament to a woman's unconventional beliefs, a labyrinth designed perhaps to confuse not just the living, but the spectral guests as well. Imagine trying to explain the layout of this place to a delivery person. Oh yes, just take the third staircase on the left, but only if it's Tuesday, otherwise it leads to a cupboard. And don't mind the door on the second floor that opens too. A brick wall, that's just for aesthetic confusion. The sheer architectural labyrinth of the Winchester Mystery House is what truly sets it apart. It's not just big, it's illogical. There are doors that open directly onto solid walls, staircases that lead straight into the ceiling, and windows that overlook other rooms, offering a charming view of, well, another wall. It's like a M.C. Escher drawing brought to life, but with more dust and a perpetual hammering sound. You might try to find a bathroom and accidentally end up in a pantry on the third floor, wondering if you just hallucinated that entire journey. One of the most famous examples of this bizarre design is the door to nowhere on the second floor. It's exactly what it sounds like, a door that, when opened, reveals a sheer drop of about 7 feet to the ground below. It's a design choice that screams either spiritual appeasement or terrible practical joke. You can almost imagine Sarah, with a mischievous glint in her eye, directing a worker to install it. Yes, right there. Perfect for confusing those pesky spirits, and perhaps for a particularly dramatic entrance if one is feeling adventurous. It makes you wonder how many bewildered workers accidentally took that plunge before a railing was installed. Then there are the staircases. Oh, the staircases. The house is riddled with them, twisting and turning in every conceivable direction. Some are grand and elegant, while others are tiny and steep, like ladders, and many of them lead to absolutely nowhere. There's the Seance room staircase, for instance, which is essentially a staircase for tiny people, with steps only a few inches high, making it incredibly awkward to ascend or descend. It's like a staircase designed for a very dignified miniature, poodle, or perhaps for the ghosts who prefer to glide rather than stride. You'd probably trip over your own feet just trying to figure out the rhythm. The constant, relentless building, day and night for 38 years without a break, truly transformed the farmhouse into a monstrous, sprawling entity. It wasn't about creating a comfortable living space. It was about ceaseless activity. Imagine trying to sleep in that house. The rhythmic clang of hammers, the sawing of wood, the hushed whispers of workers all through the night. It would be like trying to relax in a perpetually active construction zone, perhaps with the added bonus of spectral whispers. It makes you wonder if Sarah herself ever truly got a good night's sleep, or if the constant noise became its own form of lullaby. This peculiar obsession with continuous construction also led to some fascinating, if not entirely practical, innovations. Sarah was quite ahead of her time in some regards, incorporating elements like push-button gas lights and 3 elevators, quite a luxury for a private residence in the late 19th century. One of these elevators was even powered by hydraulics, a cutting-edge technology for its time. It's almost as if she was trying to prove that even in her eccentric building spree, she could still appreciate the finer points of modern convenience. Or perhaps she just needed an easy way to get from a 4th-floor bedroom to a ground-floor kitchen that was suddenly on the other side of a newly built wing. The sheer scale of the project meant that hundreds of workers were employed over the decades. This wasn't a small-time renovation. It was an industrial-scale private dwelling project. These carpenters, masons, and laborers must have been utterly bewildered by the instructions they received. Build a window here, but make sure it looks out onto the wall we just built yesterday. Oh, and this chimney? Don't bother connecting it to a fireplace. It's purely decorative and also for ghost appeasement. One can only imagine the conversations around the lunch break. Did you hear what Mrs. Winchester wants us to build today? Another staircase to the ceiling. I swear she's trying to make a giant game of chutes and ladders. Historians still debate the practicalities and logistics of managing such a project for so long. How did she procure materials so consistently? How did she manage such a large and diverse workforce without modern communication tools? Some argue that her immense wealth simply ironed out any wrinkles, allowing her to command resources and labor unparalleled for a private individual. Others suggest that the very chaos of the house was a reflection of the decentralized, often improvisational, nature of its construction. It wasn't a meticulously planned grand design, it was a constant adaptation, a whimsical growth that defied logic and conventional planning. A particularly interesting yet often overlooked detail is the presence of the number 13 throughout the house. Sarah Winchester reportedly had a fascination, or perhaps an obsession, with the number 13. You'll find 13 bathrooms, staircases with 13 steps, ceilings with 13 panels, and even 13 paned windows. It's as if she was trying to send a numerical message to the spirits, or perhaps just to confuse anyone trying to count the rooms. Just 13 bathrooms, darling. No more, no less. It's a whimsical touch that adds another layer of peculiar charm to the house, almost like an architectural Easter egg hunt for the numerically inclined. This constant addition and alteration of rooms, floors, and passages often created what are known as dead ends, or false rooms. These weren't functional spaces. They were simply there to contribute to the endless building process to keep the spirits at bay. Imagine the frustration of a ghost trying to navigate such a place. One moment they're gliding gracefully down a corridor, the next they're staring at a freshly plastered wall where a door used to be. It's enough to make a phantom throw its spectral hands up in exasperation. The house, in its never-ending evolution, also featured incredibly narrow hallways, sometimes barely wide enough for one person to squeeze through. It's as if Sarah wanted to ensure that even a ghostly presence might find itself feeling a little claustrophobic. Perhaps it was a deliberate tactic to deter the more boisterous spirits, forcing them to politely queue up, or perhaps to simply prevent any two-way traffic. As you wander deeper into the simulated silence of this incredible monument to human eccentricity, you begin to appreciate the sheer scale of the undertaking. It wasn't just a house, it was a world, a microcosm of one woman's singular vision, born from grief, sustained by superstition, and manifested in an architectural marvel that continues to baffle and bewilder. And it's within these twisting corridors and hidden passages that we might just encounter some of the house's more enduring and perhaps slightly bewildered residents. Continuing your phantom journey through the bewildering expanse of the Winchester Mystery House, you might begin to feel a faint shiver, not from cold, but from the sense that you are not entirely alone. This sprawling, perpetually evolving edifice isn't just a testament to Sarah Winchester's unique vision. It's also, according to legend, a permanent residence for some very persistent, if occasionally clumsy, ethereal beings. We're talking about the ghosts of the workers, those who toiled tirelessly day and night for decades to bring Sarah's bizarre architectural fantasies to life. Imagine being one of these laborers, spending your entire working life adding doors to nowhere or constructing staircases that end in ceilings. It's a job description that almost guarantees a lingering presence, even after death. It's said that many of the spirits haunting the Winchester Mystery House are not malevolent, vengeful entities, but rather the restless souls of the carpenters, masons, and other craftsmen who perished either on the property or while working on it. Perhaps they're just trying to finish that last tricky banister, or maybe they're eternally searching for the correct blueprint. It's like a perpetual spectral union meeting, only instead of discussing wages, they're debating the structural integrity of a door that opens to a 5-story drop. These spectral workers are often described as being rather helpful, or at least benign. Visitors and staff have reported tools mysteriously moving from one spot to another, or the sound of disembodied hammering and sawing echoing from empty rooms. It's as if these phantom laborers are still punching in, still trying to complete Sarah's endless project. You might be touring the house, admiring a particularly ornate fireplace, and suddenly hear a faint tap, tap, tap coming from behind the wall, only to find nothing there when you investigate. It's a ghostly work ethic, if nothing else. Perhaps they're worried about missing a deadline, even in the afterlife. One of the more enduring anecdotes revolves around a specific worker ghost, often referred to as Clyde. Clyde is said to be a friendly, if somewhat bewildered spirit who was a carpenter during the house's construction. Visitors have reported seeing his apparition, typically dressed in old-fashioned work clothes, wandering through the hallways, sometimes carrying tools. He's not trying to scare anyone, he seems more intent on continuing his eternal task of renovation. It's like the ultimate dedicated employee, so committed to his job that even death couldn't make him clock out. You almost feel bad for him, endlessly searching for a purpose in a house that defies all logical purpose. The idea of these lingering worker spirits ties into a popular historical belief that tragic or intense events can leave a residual haunting, an energetic imprint on a place. It's not necessarily a conscious spirit interacting with the living, but rather a replay of past events, like a cosmic DVR perpetually stuck on a loop. So, the sounds of unseen hammers or the phantom scent of sawdust could simply be the echoes of decades of non-stop construction, absorbed by the very walls of the house. It's a bit like when you walk into an old bakery and can still faintly smell bread, even if it's been empty for years. Only in this case, the smell is phantom sweat and existential dread. A fascinating, yet often overlooked historical fact about the construction of the Winchester Mystery House is the sheer amount of lumber that was brought in. Sarah Winchester insisted on using redwood, a remarkably durable and fire-resistant wood, for much of the house's structure and interior. Forests were practically denuded to supply her insatiable demand for building materials. Imagine the logistics of transporting that much timber in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It was a monumental undertaking requiring vast numbers of wagons, trains, and human effort, and perhaps a few ghostly loggers still lamenting the clear-cutting of their favorite groves. Historians still debate whether these accounts of helpful worker ghosts are genuinely paranormal phenomena or simply the product of vivid imaginations, fueled by the house's eerie atmosphere and well-publicized ghostly reputation. It's easy for the mind to play tricks in a place designed to disorient, where every creak and groan of the old house can be interpreted as a supernatural sign. Perhaps that faint tap, tap, tap you hear isn't Clyde, but just the settling of century-old redwood, slowly adjusting to its bewildering existence. However, the consistency of the reports, spanning decades and coming from various individuals, does add a curious weight to the tales. It's not just one person claiming to see a spectral Carpenter. It's many, often independently. You might find yourself walking through one of the dimly lit hallways, feeling a sudden, inexplicable chill. Was it a draft from one of the many improperly sealed windows, or did a phantom worker just glide past you, on his way to install yet another door to nowhere? The genius of the Winchester Mystery House, for those who appreciate a good spooky story, is that it allows for both interpretations, often simultaneously. It's a place where the mundane and the mysterious are inextricably linked, where the absurdity of the architecture only enhances the eerie possibility of its unseen residents. And as you mentally continue your exploration, listening to the gentle creaks and groans that only old houses can make, remember that the workers of the Winchester Mystery House might still be there, diligently, if somewhat aimlessly, continuing their endless task. Perhaps they're just waiting for Sarah to give them one more instruction, or perhaps they're hoping someone, anyone, will finally bring them a coffee. After all, even ghosts deserve a break. Your imaginary footsteps echo softly through the grand, yet undeniably unsettling spaces of the Winchester Mystery House, as we now glide into what was once the heart of its social, or perhaps spectral life, the Grand Ballroom. This isn't just any ballroom. It's a testament to Sarah's wealth and a stage for unseen gatherings, a place where the air still hums with the faintest whisper of phantom waltzes and spectral laughter. Picture it, a vast, elegant space designed for lavish parties and social galas. Chandeliers, now perhaps a little dusty, would have once sparkled with gaslight, casting a warm, inviting glow. Yet even in its prime, there would have been an underlying strangeness. The ballroom, like much of the house, wasn't quite normal. It featured a domed ceiling, intricate woodwork, and 2 fireplaces. But one of those fireplaces, in classic Winchester fashion, didn't actually connect to a chimney. It was purely decorative, a fire hazard masquerading as architectural charm. It's like buying a fancy car but forgetting to install the engine. Looks good, but utterly useless for its intended purpose. The eerie atmosphere here is often attributed to the idea that this was a place where Sarah Winchester herself would try to connect with the spirits, not just in her private seance room, but perhaps during imagined gatherings. The whispers and faint sounds of music reported by visitors could be residual energy from long-past parties, or perhaps the echoes of Sarah's own conjured festivities. You might hear the gentle rustle of a ball gown, the distant strains of a forgotten piano tune, or the quiet murmur of conversations that are just beyond your grasp. It's like being at a party where you're the only living guest, and everyone else is just vibing on another plane of existence. One particularly odd detail about the Grand Ballroom is its acoustics. It was reportedly designed with specific acoustic properties, perhaps to enhance Sarah's spiritual communications, or simply because she had a passing interest in sound engineering. It's said that if you stand in certain spots, your voice carries remarkably well, almost as if amplified. This could, of course, lead to some rather awkward moments if you're quietly remarking on the unusualness of the fireplace, and suddenly your voice booms across the room, startling yourself and any unseen entities. Imagine trying to tell a secret in such a place. Every hushed word becomes an announcement. A little-known fact about the house is that Sarah Winchester had a fascination with automatic writing. This was a spiritualist practice where a medium would supposedly allow spirits to guide their hand to write messages without conscious thought. It's essentially letting a ghost dictate a letter, which, given the house's chaotic design, probably resulted in instructions like, add another staircase, but make it sideways, and don't forget the invisible pantry. Sarah would often spend hours in solitude, engaged in this practice, meticulously filling notebooks with what she believed were messages from the other side. Perhaps some of these messages were about interior design, or perhaps they were just very long, convoluted recipes for invisible cookies. Historians still ponder the true nature of Sarah's interactions with the spiritual world. Was she a devout believer genuinely receiving guidance, or was she perhaps grappling with profound grief and a fertile imagination? The Grand Ballroom, with its blend of opulence and peculiarity, serves as a poignant reminder of this duality. It was a place designed for life and revelry, yet permeated by the whispers of death and the echoes of unseen presences. The sounds of phantom parties could be a collective delusion or a genuine auditory experience of the house's lingering past. It's a bit like watching a black and white movie, but occasionally a splash of color appears, just for a fleeting moment. The grandeur of the ballroom, juxtaposed with the bizarre architectural quirks found throughout the house, highlights Sarah's unique personality. She wasn't simply building to appease, she was building with a distinct, if unconventional, sense of style. The intricate parquet flooring, the stained glass windows depicting Shakespearean quotes, and the overall craftsmanship speak to a desire for beauty, even amidst the chaos. It's as if she wanted her spirit guests to have a rather elegant, if slightly confusing, place to hang out. Welcome to my home, spirits. Please enjoy the ballroom. Just try not to fall out the window that leads nowhere. As you stand in this magnificent, yet slightly unsettling space, you can almost feel the residual energy, the faint imprint of countless past events, both real and imagined. The silence here isn't truly silent. It's a silence filled with potential, with the lingering memory of laughter and music that only the very sensitive or perhaps the very sleepy can perceive. The grand ballroom, therefore, becomes less about what visibly is there and more about what isn't, yet still feels present. It's a space that invites you to listen closely, to discern the faint echoes of its peculiar past. And perhaps, just perhaps, you'll hear the gentle shuffle of feet, the soft hum of an ancient tune, or even the distinct clinking of spectral champagne glasses raised in a toast to a house that truly is one of a kind. As you continue your ethereal journey through the Winchester Mystery House, your senses might become attuned to more than just the visual peculiarities. The house, in its perpetual state of flux, seemed to generate a symphony of phantom sounds, a constant, subtle reminder of its active past and its spectral present. This wasn't just a place of bizarre architecture, it was a theater of the unheard, a living soundscape of ghostly whispers, creaks, and groans that would make even the most seasoned skeptic pause. Imagine the phantom sounds of construction that would have permeated the air day and night for decades. The rhythmic clang of hammers against wood, the incessant whirring of saws, the distant thud of lumber being dropped. Even after Sarah Winchester's death and the cessation of building, visitors and staff have consistently reported hearing these very sounds. It's as if the house itself remembers the endless labor, eternally replaying the symphony of its own creation. You might find yourself in a quiet room, only to hear the distinct sound of a carpenter's plane, the soft shh as it shaves wood, only to realize the room has been untouched for a century. It's a testament to the persistent energy of intense work. Beyond the work-related echoes, there are the more personal, residual hauntings, the sounds of a life lived in peculiar solitude. People have reported hearing faint piano music drifting from empty rooms, particularly from the grand ballroom or Sarah's private sitting rooms. Sarah Winchester was a talented musician, and it's believed these are the echoes of her own practice, her melodies lingering in the very air she created. Imagine listening to a spectral rendition of a Victorian-era tune, played by unseen hands, a melancholic melody that hints at deep emotion and lingering presence. It's both beautiful and profoundly unsettling. Then there are the whispers. Oh, the whispers. These aren't loud, dramatic cries for attention. They are soft, fleeting murmurs, just at the edge of audibility, often described as coming from unseen corners or echoing down empty hallways. Some interpret these as the voices of the spirits Sarah communicated with, still trying to convey their messages. Others believe they are the collective murmurs of the thousands of lives impacted by the Winchester rifle, their stories echoing through the halls of the house built to appease them. It's like trying to make out a conversation from another room, only the other room is a different dimension. The house's unique architectural design, with its odd acoustics and numerous hidden passages, likely contributes to these auditory phenomena. Sounds could easily travel in unexpected ways, amplified or distorted by the labyrinthine structure. A creak on the third floor might sound like a groan right behind you, or a distant voice might be carried through an abandoned ventilation shaft directly to your ear. It's a natural echo chamber of mystery, where every mundane sound can be twisted into something supernatural. Another frequently reported sound is the distinct rattling of wheels or a creaking wagon. This is often attributed to the ghost of a gardener or caretaker who used a particular handcart to move tools and supplies around the extensive property. It's a subtle, almost homely haunting, a reminder that even the most ordinary daily tasks can leave an energetic imprint. You might be walking through the grounds, enjoying the fresh air, and suddenly hear the rhythmic clack, clack, clack of invisible wheels on unseen cobblestones. Historians and paranormal investigators offer varying theories for these sonic experiences. Scientific explanations point to the expansion and contraction of old timber, drafts creating unusual air currents, and the natural acoustics of a vast, eccentrically built structure. Yet, the sheer volume and consistency of reports, often from people who have no prior knowledge of the house's specific hauntings, are hard to dismiss entirely. The house seems to sound haunted, even if the source remains debatable. As you continue your journey, listen closely. Beyond the historical narrative and the architectural marvel, the Winchester Mystery House offers an immersive, unsettling auditory experience. It invites you to lean in, to strain your ears, and to question what is real and what is merely an echo from a very peculiar past. You might just hear a faint, distant whisper, a ghostly hammer strike, or a forgotten melody, all adding to the perplexing, captivating enigma that is Sarah Winchester's eternal home. As your virtual journey through the Winchester Mystery House approaches its conclusion, the lingering question isn't just about the eccentricities of Sarah Winchester, but the very legacy she left behind. This isn't merely a house, it's a monumental puzzle, a living testament to grief, superstition, and an unparalleled architectural obsession. Its enduring allure isn't simply its size or its oddities, but the profound human story etched into every brick and beam. After Sarah's death in 1922, the house's fate was far from certain. The building, having been under continuous construction for 38 years, was immediately sold at auction. The new owners, a group of investors, quickly recognized its unique appeal. They understood that this wasn't just property, it was a curiosity, a spectacle, a tangible piece of American folklore. The house, in its very essence, invited speculation, wonder, and a good old-fashioned ghost story. Almost immediately, the Winchester Mystery House was opened to the public as a tourist attraction. This marked a profound shift, from a private, reclusive dwelling to a public marvel. The bizarre architectural features, once intended to confuse spirits or ease a troubled mind, became the very draw. Visitors flocked to see the door to nowhere, marvel at the staircase to the ceiling, and wander through hallways that led to brick walls. It was, and remains, a macabre theme park designed by a single, peculiar visionary. The house's reputation as a haunted locale quickly solidified its place in popular culture. Tales of Sarah's nightly seances, the restless spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles, and the friendly worker ghosts were enthusiastically embraced by guides and visitors alike. Whether these stories are strictly true or embellished over time, they contribute to the house's mystique. It's a place where the line between history and legend is deliberately blurred, inviting you to suspend disbelief and embrace the supernatural. The Winchester Mystery House stands today as a National Register of Historic Places site, a testament to its architectural and historical significance. However, its classification goes beyond mere bricks and mortar. It's a psychological landscape, a monument to a woman grappling with immense wealth, profound loss, and deep-seated fears. The house serves as a poignant reminder of the ways in which human emotion can manifest in the most extraordinary and sometimes unsettling forms. Its influence extends beyond tourism, permeating pop culture in numerous ways. The house has inspired books, documentaries, movies, and even video games. Its labyrinthine design and ghostly tales provide endless fodder for creative minds, solidifying its place as one of America's most iconic haunted locations. It's a cultural touchstone, a real-life haunted mansion that rivals anything found in fiction. The ongoing preservation and maintenance of the house are a monumental task. The eccentric design, the sheer size, and the age of the structure present unique challenges. It's a continuous battle against time, the elements, and the inherent impracticality of its original construction. Yet, the dedicated efforts ensure that future generations can continue to wander its bewildering corridors and ponder the mysteries within. Ultimately, the Winchester Mystery House is more than just a peculiar mansion. It is a powerful narrative about grief, guilt, and the human desire for control in the face of the uncontrollable. Sarah Winchester's story, inextricably linked to the house she built, continues to fascinate because it taps into universal themes of loss and the unknown. As you leave its perplexing embrace, you carry not just memories of its oddities, but a deeper sense of the profound and often unsettling ways in which the past continues to echo in the present. The house stands as a perpetual question mark, inviting every visitor to ponder its true purpose and the secrets it still holds. As your virtual journey through the Winchester Mystery House approaches its conclusion, the lingering question isn't just about the eccentricities of Sarah Winchester, but the very legacy she left behind. This isn't merely a house, it's a monumental puzzle, a living testament to grief, superstition, and an unparalleled architectural obsession. Its enduring allure isn't simply its size or its oddities, but the profound human story etched into every brick and beam. After Sarah's death in 1922, the house's fate was far from certain. The building, having been under continuous construction, for 38 years was immediately sold at auction. The new owners, a group of investors, quickly recognized its unique appeal. They understood that this wasn't just property, it was a curiosity, a spectacle, a tangible piece of American folklore. The house, in its very essence, invited speculation, wonder, and a good old-fashioned ghost story. Almost immediately, the Winchester Mystery House was opened to the public as a tourist attraction. This marked a profound shift from a private, reclusive dwelling to a public marvel. The bizarre architectural features once intended to confuse spirits or ease a troubled mind became the very draw. Visitors flocked to see the door to nowhere, marvel at the staircase to the ceiling, and wander through hallways that led to brick walls. It was and remains a macabre theme park designed by a single peculiar visionary. The house's reputation as a haunted locale quickly solidified its place in popular culture. Tales of Sarah's nightly seances, the restless spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles, and the friendly worker ghosts were enthusiastically embraced by guides and visitors alike. Whether these stories are strictly true or embellished over time, they contribute to the house's mystique. It's a place where the line between history and legend is deliberately blurred, inviting you to suspend disbelief and embrace the supernatural. The Winchester Mystery House stands today as a National Register of Historic Places site, a testament to its architectural and historical significance. However, its classification goes beyond mere bricks and mortar. It's a psychological landscape, a monument to a woman grappling with immense wealth, profound loss, and deep-seated fears. The house serves as a poignant reminder of the ways in which human emotion can manifest in the most extraordinary and sometimes unsettling forms. Its influence extends beyond tourism, permeating pop culture in numerous ways. The house has inspired books, documentaries, movies, and even video games. Its labyrinthine design and ghostly tales provide endless fodder for creative minds, solidifying its place as one of America's most iconic haunted locations. It's a cultural touchstone, a real-life haunted mansion that rivals anything found in fiction. The ongoing preservation and maintenance of the house are a monumental task. The eccentric design, the sheer size, and the age of the structure present unique challenges. It's a continuous battle against time, the elements, and the inherent impracticality of its original construction. Yet, the dedicated efforts ensure that future generations can continue to wander its bewildering corridors and ponder the mysteries within. Ultimately, the Winchester Mystery House is more than just a peculiar mansion. It is a powerful narrative about grief, guilt, and the human desire for control in the face of the uncontrollable. Sarah Winchester's story, inextricably linked to the house she built, continues to fascinate because it taps into universal themes of loss and the unknown. As you leave its perplexing embrace, you carry not just memories of its oddities, but a deeper sense of the profound and often unsettling ways in which the past continues to echo in the present. The house stands as a perpetual question mark, inviting every visitor to ponder its true purpose and the secrets it still holds. As our perplexing journey through the Winchester Mystery House draws to a close, we hope you've found these glimpses into its eerie halls and bewildering history as captivating as we have. Sarah Winchester's monumental, chaotic home isn't just a building. It's a profound narrative woven from grief, mystery, and an enduring human fascination with the unknown. Every strange staircase, every door to nowhere, whispers a part of a story that continues to echo through time. Thank you for joining us on this spectral tour, imagining each scene through the unique lens of late 15th century illuminated manuscripts. We trust these prompts have sparked your own creativity and perhaps even inspired you to explore the rich tapestry of historical illustration. We look forward to sharing more intriguing tales and visual adventures with you in our next installment.